Annyeong, it's Mikey here, and today I'm coming to you guys with another Switch video. And I know I've done a lot of Switches lately, and in general, it's kind of been a lot of like mixing of things because I've been focusing on this channel to be more like enthusiast-based things. So it's definitely going to be a lot of like customizable stuff like HE switches, regular mechanical switches, customizable HE boards, as well as custom like DIY kit boards in terms of like mechanical. And hopefully we'll see like how this channel goes. We have to thank Unikeys though, because they sent me out another set of switches. They have a bunch of switches that they sent me. This is the last one of the first one, and then I have another batch coming in. This is going to be an interesting one. It's from Keygeek, so we're gonna have to see how this is, how it sounds, and how it really is gonna be compared to the other switches I have in the spreadsheet, which soon enough I'm gonna have it in a shareable spreadsheet in my Discord. So make sure to go check out the Discord in the description below, and please make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get right into this video. Now, starting off with taking a look at the Keygeek Jasmine version 2. And we have to thank Unikeys, of course, for sending me this out, because they've been just so good to me in terms of just switches. It's been crazy. Really, you guys should go check out their site, because I think they have one of the best selections of switches. Now, we're going to take a look to see how this is in terms of like sound profile, and of course compare it with a lot of the other switches that we tried. Overall, in terms of the way that the switch is built, it has a nice travel, so I'm going to be curious of how the typing experience is. But let's go into a sound test. Now this right here is going to be the Jasmine R2, and I wasn't honestly expecting to get a like version 2 switch, so that's why I didn't have like a version 1 to compare it with. But the idea is that I'm going to be comparing it with like the other switches I have in that spreadsheet, so hopefully that spreadsheet helps you guys to see where this one just will line up in general and how it feels. I will explain, of course, while I'm opening it up and going over the feel of the switch. Overall, sound-wise, it definitely sounded more towards like a deeper sound. Now, you might be curious, how does this sound compared to the Keygeek M1? Because those two are going to be where it's actually similar bass, I think. It's not really a thocky switch, but it does lean towards a thocky profile in terms of what you would have heard. But then the M1's also kind of in the middle too. So this one's also in the middle switch. It's like both of a medium middle switch type of thing. So I'm gonna have to really compare it for you guys, and like in that spreadsheet really go over the information, so that way you guys can have an idea exactly where this will line up comparatively, and that way you can choose between which one you're looking for, because this one is definitely similar to the M1s in terms of like the sound profile, but there will be differences, and I want to go into that detail so that it can really help you guys to see what makes sense for you and which switch you should grab. So let's go right into that. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the information again. And the thing we can tell already is that, yeah, the switch itself has a little bit more of a deeper sound profile. Not like super deep. It's not a thock, like a full thock. I would say that it was more of like the middle range. Now, in terms of the travel of the switch, so we can see here from 18, we'll go down to 14.1. And I just wanted to, make sure that my measurements were correct. So we're just doing multiple, trials of this for the measurement. But overall, I got the 18 to 14.2. So for 3.8 millimeters does look correct in terms of the actual travel. So that's something that's going to be important to note, because overall it's not going to be like your usual, long pole switches, which maybe has a little bit less travel, but it still has a good 3.8. Now, as you can see here, while we look into the actual stem, just to see the stock lubing, you'll notice that, in general, this is like a regular Keygeek styled stock lubing, where you're not going to be getting a ton of lube in terms of the actual switch, like the stem, but they do a somewhat like light job on the sides of the stem. So right beside the rails actually don't really have lube on them, and then you'll get some lube usually on the contact points of the stem to the pins. So this is something that a lot of Keygeek switches do, and surprisingly enough, I feel like you usually get a really nice smooth feel with the Keygeek switches. And the thing about the Keygeek switches is, compared to HMX, I don't think it's as tight in terms of within the top housing, where HMX is like, if you hand lube it incorrectly, you're really going to get a switch that gets stuck all the time, while Keygeek, I think you have a little bit more room to be able to do that. Now, as you saw earlier too, with the pole, it was a long pole. And now, as you can see here as well, with the spring, it's coming out to be 22 millimeters in terms of my measurement, which is kind of surprising, because they were saying it's 18 millimeters, yet my measurement's coming out to be 22. And as you'll see here too, there's lubing on the tops and the bottom of the springs. So this is something I've actually haven't seen before in a Keygeek switch, which kind of surprised me, because normally their springs aren't lubed like this, and this is sometimes a way to lube your springs if you aren't wanting to go through the whole hassle of like taking out every spring, putting it into a bag, and putting oil or grease in it, and then shaking it up. So you can always just lube a little bit on the edges. So something surprising about that. And then in terms of the pins as well, from the bottom housing, as you could have saw, it would have the actual lubing on there. So that's like the usual Keygeek fashion of having the lubing on the contact points in the bottom housing for the pins. Now, as you'll have heard too, the switch kind of sounds muted when you are like, hitting this switch without it being in a board, but it still has like a higher pitch to it compared to, say, some of the thockier switches out there. Now, you can see here with our decibel test, we can see how loud it can get. In general, this right now is going to be very close up to the board. And once you bring it closer up to your face, or to be fair, like where the distance would be from your desk to you, you're looking at more on the average of 64 decibels. So is that a very loud switch? Not really. A lot of the loud switches, like very high clack switches, can go up to about 70 to 72 decibels, while this one's sitting around 64. So is it really good for office spaces? Maybe not if you're in a very, very quiet office, but it could be a not too bad in a more of a loud office environment. Now, overall, in terms of like the feel of the switches themselves, you don't get a ton of the actuation bump. So a lot of linears, usually if it has like a heavier actuation bump on, the top end, what happens is when you're pressing it, you will have that feel of like a slight bump, almost like a tactile, not really a tactile bump itself, but you'll have a little bit of that pressure at the top end, and then it goes down smooth. Now this one, you don't actually get that. It's really fully like top to bottom, super smooth, and you don't really have that kind of feel on the top. Now in terms of the stem wobble on the top end, you don't get a ton of rattling, but there is a little bit of rattling in terms of the stem at the top end. And then once you do press them down, you do have some movement, but not much. I would say that compared to the M1s, these have less movement. So in terms of those who are really sensitive to stem wobble and don't like stem wobble, I would say the Jasmines actually have a little less stem wobble compared to the Keygeek M1 switches. So that's something that's going to be a benefit choosing this over the M1s. Now, going into the backlighting test, so one thing you'll notice is that the backlighting for the M1s were very, very dark compared to the Jasmines here, where you actually get some of the lighting that comes through. Now, on camera, maybe it's coming a little bit darker, and it's not going to be the brightest switch, but you do get some of that backlighting with the Jasmines. It does get affected though with the lighting, so it's going to make it a little bit greenish. I actually like the color that it's providing. It's like this really light, like jasmine green, which looks pretty cool. Now going into our actual spreadsheet. So this is the spreadsheet that we can tell where is this compared to the M1s exactly. So usually by human ear, sometimes it's hard to tell the exact differences between the two switches, which is why it's nice to have this measurement spreadsheet that I've created. And we can see here that yes, the Jasmines are going to be a higher pitched switch compared to the Keygeek M1s. And overall, decibel wise, it's going to be similar, but the M1s are going to be slightly quieter compared to the Jasmine. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit deeper sounding, a little bit quieter compared to the Jasmines, the M1's going to be your choice. But if you're looking for something that has a little bit more of that slightly higher pitch and also has a little bit of a louder sound, the Jasmines are probably going to be your choice of switch. And this is looking more towards the middle medium sound profile of switches. So it's between talky and between clacky, but not really fully into either, and more sitting in the middle between all of them. So I would say the Jasmines are quite interesting in terms of that aspect, really looking at this whole spreadsheet. Overall, I think these Jasmines are quite nice. Honestly, I kind of actually like them more in terms of the typing feel over the M1s. And that was just because of the little bit more length in terms of travel, which allowed for it to have a nice typing experience. I will have the links in the description for you guys. You can save 7% by using the code Mikey, where you can go check out the Jasmine V2 and in general any more switches, because Unikeys has just a huge list of different switches. I hope this video helped you guys to see whether or not the Keygeek Jasmine is going to be a switch for you. I think that if you are looking for something slightly brighter, slightly louder than the M1s, these are going to be ones that you should probably take a look at. I think they're very similar in terms of the styles, but then the M1s aren't also great for backlighting, while these Jasmines are going to be a bit better. So you can definitely go check them out for yourselves. I feel like they're very kind of similar in terms of where they are in like the range wise, but the M1s are going to be a little bit deeper in terms of the sound, especially if you saw the measurements. You can go check out the link in the description where you can get a discount with my code Mikey and save 7%, and of course also help support the channel. Please go check out the other videos I got, and I'll have to catch you guys next time.